Right, so I've now got my Coloursoft coloured pencils. Any colour pencils will do, but it's just to show you how to do some slightly more refined detail and also including a little bit of colour. So this is I think it's called Blackberry, so it's a already purpley colour. And I'm just using that. There's a beautiful colour in here that's almost glowing, and it's certainly not grey. So I'm just using that to put that in. And then there's a wee bit of it here. And then over here I'm going to use my grey, just a grey colour. But you can see what it does is it nicely goes over the pastel, but leaves a faint residue, but tints the colour the way that a blending stick would sort of blend things together. This does something similar, and it gives you quite a lot of control. You want to do this at a stage where you don't want to move things radically, because it is harder to rub coloured pencil off. But the great thing about using it with pastels is it means you actually need to fix your page at the end less, because it's already been pushed in so much by the pencil. Have a wee look at how that's looking. Right, that looks actually better. I use them for fine-tuning things. So here where we're getting this bridge, I need to blend this into this. So what I would be inclined to do is to get my lovely mid-grey, just carry it over the purple so it's still there, but it's not as much of a jump. And then I would use my coloured pencils on top of it. So I'll try the grey first. This is just the grey one. So you can see what it does is it gives me a lovely line. And that actually goes all the way up here, which I haven't got in my drawing, so I'll just extend it up while I can. And it's lifting off some of the pastel the way a blending stick would, but it's leaving this grey. So you get a beautiful transition. And again, what I'll do here, going back to what I said earlier about there being a light, you know, there's three different things going on. There's the dark, and then a highlight, and then the mid-tone, and the reflected light. I will go back in with a lighter one here and just describe the outer edge of it, which this is a wee bit thick, but I'll blend it with my pencil in a minute. What it'll do is it'll give the illusion of that curving. And then I'll use my lighter colour here. Just a wee bit of that there. Right, so with that done, I will go and get a lighter grey if I've got one at hand. Yep, there's one here. I'll just see what happens if I blend them together. I'm leaning on this quite lightly. It's actually the nib of the pencil that's doing most of the blending, more than the colour. The grey is just helpful because it's adding something. Whereas if it was just a blending stick, it would just be lifting off and rubbing the two colours underneath together. Now don't be afraid to go over the line. The beauty of pastels is you can pull them back out again. There's a wee lovely bit here that goes behind that petal. And there's a nice wee bit up here which I don't want to ignore, because if I don't think about it now it'll be harder to put it in later. So there's a light, we'll use the white to begin with, and it curves round like that, and that's part of this petal. I nearly keep calling them leaves, but they're not leaves, they're petals. And then when I've done that, I can get when I've got my white out, I think I'll put a good chunk of white on here. You can see how that goes on. It's very creamy and buttery. And again, that's the pigment of the beautiful pastel. There's no other white that beats the Unison white. And it's not always that easy to come by, but you can get them straight from Unison if you don't see them or don't have them. They sell all their colours on their website, I think. Still not happy with this, and that's the main bit for me, but I'll deal with that later. What I do is every so often I'll go back to it maybe with these colours. That's brown, don't want that. Use the blue this time. And if I put that right up to the edge, it's quite nice because it sharpens it and also gives a wee punch of colour. You could use a black coloured pencil or charcoal pencil. Pastel pencils you can use, they're really good as well. I don't have a lot of pastel pencils because I tend to use these, but you certainly get good results with them as well. The great thing about using pencils, especially coloured pencils, is they're so fine that you can actually make things very, very thin and narrow, which you can't so much with the chunky sticks. So if you get the bulk of it down, then you can just manipulate the transitions with the pencils really nicely. You can use cheap pencils. You do not need to use expensive pencils, although it is nice to have the colour range. You can use children's pencils if that's all you've got, and you could use 1 or 2 colours, you don't need a lot. A blue would be good, a black would even be helpful. A red you could use for certain things. See, it's just starting to make it look a bit more realistic. If you stand back, which I just did, it shows you what you should do next. Whatever jumps out at you the most is what you should be doing next. So there's a wee bit of confusion here. It looks like I have actually merged 2 petals together, which I'm not happy about. So instead of faking it and leaving it, I'm actually going to fix it because it will look so much better. So what I'm going to do is bring that across into that petal there, because that actually is the line of this one. And this is what happens if you don't draw it in first, you get a wee bit muddled. So I'm doing a wee bit of surgery here. Where's my dark grey? Make sure you use the right colour that you're intending on using. Quite easy to change things, that's why pastel's great for beginners. Because you can just put things on top. Same as painting, but painting's harder to mix colours, and if you don't have much colour knowledge. I'm going to have to get rid of this wee bit, so let's see what's the best way to do that. I'm going to actually try a wee brush, because I put quite a lot of that on. If you just take that off with a wee stiff brush, it just merges that away. That's actually quite good for blending. You can see that actually works for other areas too. Some people love using a brush. Some of my students have used brushes. Right, okay, and I'm going to go back, way back to this colour, which is one of the ones at my set. It's a red 6. Just to put a wee bit more into here, because I lost a wee bit when I put the coloured pencil on top. My hands are a wee bit dirty, which you should really have baby wipes or something that you can clean in between. I've now lost my blending stick. I put it somewhere. Here we go. See, back to the blending stick, it just pushes that colour back in. Right, so back to this bit now. This petal is here, but what happens is it doesn't come down as far as that. So I've moved that along. And what I now need to do is put this part down more. Quite easy to change that now. You can use that, and I should probably actually use a wee bit of pastel so that I can piggyback the coloured pencils over it. I'm just moving them out the road. It's easier just to put a wee bit of pastel, it's quicker as well, just to chop a wee bits. And that wee bit there's a different colour, so I'll go back to my red colour. It's a beautiful corally colour, this. Get something on there just to take away that chalkiness of the white, where the white was. Do that, and then go back with my lovely, I think it's blackberry. Just mix it all together. It's quite fixed on the page now anyway. Right, so if I've redone this now, what I need to do is go back and look at the tone in here, which is not as light as that. So coloured pencils is probably the easiest way to rectify it. You can put pastel on top of the coloured pencils. It's just harder to, depending on the amount you put. And you can also blend them with a blending stick. But it's a rule of trend to put them over pastel. It'll work better. Far easier for you as well to fix things if you need to. There's that lovely shadow there, and that comes down like that. So that's helped that. I think I would quite like to put a tiny wee bit of that dark grey in there as well. It's not dark enough, I feel. And then a wee bit more here when I've got that in my hand. And certainly there's a lovely bit behind that petal. So it looks quite rough, but it won't be in a minute when I blend it all. You're probably realising the technique now. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This is just one way. You could draw it in first. The only problem with that is you'll lose the freeness that I'll have at the end of this, hopefully, because you haven't decided where things are going yet. But if you decide it ahead of time, it looks a bit more staid. You can't be as vigorous and move things around. So I think for pastel, it's far more like painting. It's better to allow yourself to have that freedom. Watercolour is completely different. I would say with watercolour, it's best to draw it in first. See, now that's a wee bit darker, I can put that back over and it just makes it a wee bit deeper. Take a wee step back. That's starting to look better. There's a lot more going on in here than I've got at the moment. I'm just going to zoom in my iPad to look at it so that I don't make up bits, which is a temptation. You can get quite lazy and just think, oh, that'll do, but I would highly recommend you don't do that, because anytime I've done that, it doesn't look good. It always looks wrong. So you need to be in a good concentrating state of mind to do this. Don't be distracted by other things. Tell your family that you're busy. It's a great way to get away from people at the moment if you want peace, is just to draw. Set up a space anywhere. It doesn't need to be in a studio. You could do this at a kitchen table. And there's a wee bit of dust, but it's really not that messy. Your hands get a bit messy, but you can wash them, so it's not a problem. Right, there's a lovely reflected highlight here. This is quite flat at the moment, but this is a curve, so I want to just get a wee bit of that in there. Just looking for a good colour to do so. In the image, it's slightly peachy, so I'm just wondering if I've got anything that I could use for that in my set. I've got this purple, it's this lovely pale purple, so I'll try that first and see. Yeah, it's quite a good, it's light. It's going to give me the idea of a reflected light. So I'll put that there. And then there's also some bluey greys up here, so I'd like something for that. The solution may very well be the coloured pencils though. Let's just blend that out. Find my grey again, dark grey. See what happens if I put that. That's quite nice. It's a wee bit dark, so let's try the lighter one. Even a white coloured pencil is very useful, and I'll see if I can show you that at some point. It just creates a kind of blended effect with any colours. Looking at my photo the whole time, I'm flicking my eye between the two. And again, you could use pastel pencils or charcoal pencil if you don't have any of them and you've got that. If you use normal pencils, like a graphite pencil, it will go a wee bit shiny, so it's not quite as effective. So just be wary of that. I'm just going to go to my Conte. This is this white Conte again, just to get the delicacy of this wee line. It's not going to be light white, but we don't need it to be. Lean in your pinky to avoid smudging, or use a mal stick, which I've got over there, but most people don't have them. You can use a straight edge of any sort. So basically a mal stick, this is a mal stick, and you can lean like this and not touch your painting or your pastel, your artwork in general. I don't need it at the moment, so I'll just put it away. Right, so I'm just going to get, there's actually another wee tool that I used. I'm going to try and find it. It was a, believe it or not, I think it's something for colour. It's a wee rubbery type device from Faber-Castell, but I think it's a kind of rubbery thing. But it's quite good for blending. I've used this before. It's quite good for just blending some of these wee bits together. Some people use shapers, which are these rubber tools that look like brushes with a rubber instead of the brush part. You can actually use anything that works for you. There's no rules. Well, there are rules, but I tend to break rules anyway. So you can just push that colour down like that, and this is also rubbing it off a wee bit, which is quite nice too. Just looking at getting the variation of the tones, and if this does it, then use it. Just about thinking out the box a wee bit. Just have a look at my photo here. There's a wee bit of a reflected light down there. So again, let's try something like the purple again. The light purple, that is. Quite a gentle colour. And I actually see that in there as well. Just got to play around with things and see if it works, and then all of a sudden you'll think, oh, that actually worked, and you'll use it in other places. Just dotting around the whole bit so I don't start and stop. Now what you can also do with the purple is put a yellow over it. So this is a grey yellow. Sometimes it works really well to put the two together. That's a wee bit warm. There's a lighter one, I'll try. And then you can mix them together. I'm going to use a coloured pencil to blend this. I'm actually going to use a pink, pale pink one. See what happens. So just trying to blend it all through. Get rid of all the wee bits. Back to the blending stick just to lift a tiny wee bit more of it off. The pencil's good, but it's not lifting enough. Again, when you've got stuff in hand, just use it. See bits that need done elsewhere. Every so often blow and get rid of the excess dust. Having a wee stand back. I think that's looking better. It's looking far more real now. It's obviously a lot more needed. In here, I can't actually see a lot. I think it looks like there's a wee bit that points up here. So I'm going to have to just do what I think, because the image isn't great, it's out of focus. So I'm just going to put some grey in there so it establishes a fold behind this one. And also blend. Not got any clean fingers left, so I'll just use this. Put the yellow on top of the grey. And then I'm going to go back in with this dark, lovely plum colour and move that along a wee bit. Well, that's actually the blue, that's not the colour I thought. Well, this is in hand, I'll do some wee bit over here too. Sharpen up that line, it's a wee bit sharper in there than I've got it. I might even steal a wee bit for around here to warm up the underside of the part. And I'm going to put the grey pastel just a wee bit on top of that. And then blend it with the stick. The bigger the pastel, the easier it is. This is not that big, it's quite small, which is making all these footery bits that wee bit harder. That's okay. That's a wee highlight there. Picking out some highlights with this lovely grey, but it's a light grey before I blend everything. This bit here really quite crisp. I want that to pop out. While I've got my white in hand, I think I'll go around a few areas as well. Just to bring it to life. White is very mixable and very important that you have a good white. I think sometimes people are selling the light grey as a white because it looks like a white when you look at it, but it is not white. So don't be confused if you're buying online or you're buying in a shop and they say that's the same, it's not. I'll blend it in a wee minute. I'm just going through the whole thing, adding in this colour because I quite like it. And it gives me a chance to think about the outer petals a wee bit more. So I've used the white and now I'm using the grey. I tend to apply quite a lot and then I'll blend it all for a few minutes after that, which you've probably noticed me doing. Let's have a wee look at that before I blend it from a distance. Yeah, I see that it's started to look a bit more slick, which is good and thick. I'm just going to get very light grey coloured pencil. Now you could use the white coloured pencil because I can't actually see my white, so I'm going to use this one. But before I do that, I'm just going to neaten this up. I think that's still a wee bit crude. There's bits that I will regard as a focal point and spend longer on them. And there's bits that will have hard edges and there's other areas that won't. So you do need to be decisive about that. Generally the centre of the flowers can be quite important, or highlighted areas. Okay, so this is the light grey I went and got. I'm going to use this time to gently just blend through some of these lights I just put in. I'm using a light grey because if I use a colour it will darken them a wee bit and I don't want to lose that lovely contrast I've put in. Especially in areas like this that I've already worked on, you just want to take it down a tiny touch but keep the residue of the light to show that it curves. There's already an awful lot of pastel on this bit. Sometimes people ask me, can you use paint with pastel? And I would say no, not at this stage. You can use pastel with paint though. So if you're doing a painting, you could put some pastel on top of your painting. Sometimes it takes and sometimes it doesn't, depending on how much paint you've got on. But I have done paintings on panel and board that I've used pastels with. Predominantly at the beginning I use it though, to create texture and just different surfaces. Pastel's actually quite good with watercolour, especially if you're beginning and you have a problem to fix in it. I'm just going to get some more coloured pencils. I think this looks nice. It's a kind of dove grey-green it's called. So that's quite nice for, I've forgotten what I was going to do there. I had something in my mind. I think it was here, yeah. So there's a lovely wee bit that's quite sharp here and it goes into the light. You've got to be so careful that you don't jar the page with too much pastel and too much pencil too soon. That's looking quite good, but I'm going to put a tiny wee bit of more of the light grey into there because I think it's not quite as dark as that. There is a wee bit that's dark. And then I'm going to go back over with my green grey and push that in just to make it a few tones lighter than it was. Happier with that. Now I'd like to neaten that wee bit up. So again, get a lighter colour and think about your edge. I don't think that's light enough, I think I need white. Where's my white gone? Yeah, it is. You can see it there because it's right in front of me. Right, so yeah, up here, to show this petal, it always helps to do what's behind it and how it meets it. And again, while I've got this in hand, I'll just freshen up any wee bits that I feel I would rather were whiter. Going back to the petal in front and just establishing that line so it becomes much more prominent. And I can also take this opportunity to blend the light of the edge into the dark that I've already put down. Getting rid of that hard edge because there's no edge there. Get rid of that wee bit as well, take it down a bit. Right, that's better. I'm going to put a wee bit of, tiny wee bit of the highlight in there again. That's not quite light enough, I keep doing the same thing. I think this colour might be better, it's a slightly greeny grey. That's quite nice. And then I'm also aware that there is an outer edge around that, which is a bluey grey. And then there's a wee kick of it there. Now, if you misjudge where you put it, like I just did there slightly, get your grey pencil or your pastel pencil or charcoal pencil and just chop up, almost like reshape it, and then chop behind it, and you end up with a lovely wee delicate highlight there. And then that comes down into this kind of fold which goes from light to mid-tone to reflected light in there. So I'm basically working my way through and closely looking at the tones and what's around each petal as well as the petals themselves. And the more you correct it, the more it will start to look real. Until you get the three tones, it never looks particularly right. Let's go jump to this one for a minute. There's a wee shadow that I've noticed that comes across there. And then there's a lovely highlight going across, which I definitely want to get in. I'll put all my coloured pencils down for a minute because I'm holding about 20 of them. And I'll get a lovely, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try a wee bit. This is a yellowy grey. Quite like that. I think I want it to be a wee bit bluer, so I'll find a very pale blue to go on top. I misjudged where I put that there. I went way too high up. Again, use your colour pencils and chop down. The main thing with this little highlight is it's very delicate, so I want to chop it in so it becomes really thin up here. And it's a wee bit wobbly, which I'd like to get in that as well. It's not perfectly formed. It's much more subtle than that. I think this is where it's very helpful to use coloured pencils just to shape behind objects and shapes. All these techniques I use for portraiture. I mainly demonstrate in portraiture, but I do paint flowers as well at the moment. I've been doing a few. I'm just taking a wee stand back to look at it. I think I need to do more to this area. It's a wee bit clumsy. You need to be very fussy and picky when you're doing this kind of work. Don't just settle. But make sure you're having fun when you do it, otherwise it will show in your painting or drawing. I would probably suggest not doing a flower as your first attempt, although there are many people that have with me done that. But it is hard. If you do it in charcoal, it's a lot easier because you have to think about all the colours I'm thinking about at the moment. So just a stick of charcoal and some white paper, cartridge paper, and you'll be able to achieve something that you quite like. If you just look at the tones. I've been demonstrating for about 10 years. I've been an artist for over 20 years. But I started to get invitations to demonstrate about 10 years ago for art clubs all over the place. And I do them frequently. But I've always meant to record and video them. but you know, you never get round to it, and it takes a bit of effort to do so if you don't know how to do these things. So this is the first time I've actually done a demo and recorded it. At my class today was the first time that I've ever done a video demo, but this is just a continuation of that. I'm just looking at this petal now. The key is to be quite blocky to begin with, and then you make it finer as you build it up. But once you've worked out your colours and shapes and proportions, then you can do that. I think the problem with this petal is that I've not looked close enough at the shape, because it comes in and then it goes out and then it comes in again. It's far more delicate than what I have. So it's worthwhile just getting that right. That's a light grey on top of the dark grey pencil, and it helps to blend it a wee bit. I think I need to actually use my blending stick, just the normal one, this one, and gently just go through some of these confident marks I've made. Your marks should always be confident. Your colour choices should always be confident. Even if you're not confident, put them on in a confident way, and then fix what you've got on the paper rather than being tentative, because it shows. There are a million different ways to draw a rose in pastel. This is just one, and I could draw this tomorrow and do it in a completely different way. If you're going to pick a rose, pick one that's not got too many petals, because that makes the job a lot harder when there's a lot of folds. And you can't really get away with leaving some out. You think, oh, maybe I could just leave some out, but it's easier to just follow your reference. Just going to have a wee stand back in a minute and have a look at it. Happy with that. I think it's going quite well now, because it's started to look more neutral, just the overall colour, and that's because I brought the yellow on top. I definitely need to do a lot more work to the outside petals, and obviously more here as well, but I'll look at it and make a decision about which bit needs done the most, and that's what I tend to do next. So I think there's a lovely curve here which has got a yellow glow. It's not quite yellowy like this, but I know if I put this in, it'll be a nice glow that it has, and I can refine it with another colour on top in a minute. And again, the yellow will neutralise some of these greys that I've already got down. Put some of this bluey grey. Anywhere that I see it, I just add it while I've got it in my hand, basically. It's much quicker to do that. This actually, I've forgotten about, goes all the way up into a wee pointy bit up here, which is really nice, so I better, before I forget, put that in. Just even if it's not quite right, just get something in to show there's a highlight there. See the confidence that I did that? That's what I'm talking about. If you do it confidently, it tends to look better. There's a wee bit of dark behind it, so I've slightly made that up. There is black background behind that bit, but this petal at the moment is going up higher, so I'm just going to leave it there. Each petal's got its own personality, if you like, so don't just make it up. Look at them, observe them, and do what you see. I think this petal actually, now that I've moved that, that highlight goes up higher. Again, I'll just do it when I've got this in hand. And then I put that behind there, I think, as well, while I've got it in my hand. You can see it looks quite rough when I do this, but I know I'm going to blend it, so I'm not really that bothered. I think maybe I could do with a wee bit of this over that. I'm looking for a bluey grey rather than the greeny greys. Where have I put all my bluey greys? Here's a big one, we'll use this. And this could keep you occupied for days, never mind hours. Let's pull that out a wee bit. I'm looking forward to blending this in a minute. I get a wee bit lost in it when I'm doing it like this, it's quite nice. So do that and then blend it through all that hard work. Sometimes where the petal goes into the background, I'll just